Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. It is August 13th, 2024. This is episode 254. Stand-up comedian, actor, and improviser, and dreamer, Paul Green, sharing my journey and my learnings as I pursue the dreams that are calling to me in my heart. So, where do we start off today? So, let's see. There's some good news, there's some bad news, there's some indifferent news. Let's start with the bad news. So, today I calculated the overall profitability of the Midlife Crisis comedy show, which is, if this is your first time joining me, is a two-person comedy show that I started with fellow comedian Josh Novi about 3 or 4 months ago. And we are about 7 shows in now. I think we've done 7 performances of the Midlife Crisis comedy show. And we have spent a lot of money on Facebook ads and digital marketing. And we hired an advertiser to run these ads for us. And the hope, of course, was that we would be able to sell more tickets than the cost that it took to sell them. And unfortunately, that has not proven the case, and we have lost quite a bit of money for a brand new venture. Now, is it discouraging? Yeah, a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, name any company that makes money right away. It's like the whole game of starting a business from scratch is that you just keep digging a big hole until you get to a point to where you're able to start making more money than you're spending and start filling that hole back in. So, were we hoping to have done better on the financial side? Sure. Is that like, oh, well, we better just take this loss and throw in the towel? Nope, not at all. We are moving forward. We're pivoting. And the next goal now is to see if we produce our own show out of town, can we make that profitable? One of the pros and cons of how we've been doing these shows is every show we've done, we've, to some degree or another, have piggybacked on an existing show or an existing production. And there's pros and cons to that. I think the downside is, at least on the shows that we did in Tucson, is people already sort of know what that show is and what to expect. And I don't think that we did a good job of generating enough of a differentiating show concept to attract more and new customers. That's a complicated way of saying the opportunity that we have in front of us is to see if we just rent a venue that isn't like a established comedy venue, and we are the only game in town, the only comedy show in town. So we're looking at smaller towns, and we just put on a comedy show from scratch. Will we then be able to attract a audience and sell tickets and sell enough tickets to where we can do that thing where you make more money than you spend? So that's the goal. That's the opportunity that we are exploring now. We have a couple of dates and venues already lined up for September. So, yeah, are we bummed we lost a bunch of money? Sure. But are we quitting? No, we are not. So, the bad news is we've lost money. The good news is we've booked, I think, 2 more shows already out of state, or at least out of the Phoenix area. I think one of them is in Yuma and the other is in Safford, which are obviously both Arizona, but they're far away from Phoenix and they're far away from Tucson. So we're trying to get away from the big metropolis areas and go into these sort of smaller communities and see if being the only game in town is enough to attract the people out. So that is what's going down on that side of things. So another interesting thing has just happened. So about a week ago, I self-submitted for this casting call that came on one of the many casting subscription sites that I'm a member of. I can't keep track of them all. But anyway, so the submission was for a sketch comedy group local here in Phoenix, or they are producing a show here in Phoenix. So I self-submitted. They sent me a script, had me send in a tape of me reading this script, which was a sort of a long monologue in somewhat of a infomercial. It was kind of like an infomercial feel. So I sent in that self-tape last week, and then I got an email inviting me out to an in-person audition, which I went to on Saturday, and I ended up doing a cold read on 2 different sketches. And evidently I did well enough that I just got cast in this sketch comedy group. They will be doing a show in November. So that has just added a whole other thing on my entertainment plate. Because they actually rehearse a lot. So I'm going to be investing some time into this sketch comedy troupe and just see what happens. Initially, I wasn't too excited about it when I saw the rehearsal schedule because I'm just like, oh, I don't want to rehearse that much. But then the other hand, I'm going, I haven't really done any scripted acting in a while, and I haven't done any live scripted theater in even longer. So this will be a good time just to brush off the old acting chops. It's going to be sketch comedy. I love sketch comedy. It'll be a chance for me to grow my resume a bit and connect with some creative people out here in Phoenix and grow the old network, you know what I mean? So that was exciting. So I've got that. Actually, the first rehearsal will be tonight, so I will be heading out and doing that. And let's see, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about, but it is not coming to my mind. Oh yeah, this weekend I'm going to be flying out to Kansas City and heading out to Kansas City, Missouri to do a comedy show with the incredibly funny and talented Elizabeth Weichert. And she is so awesome. She is self-producing a comedy show. She's sort of doing the same thing that me and the Midlife Crisis comedy show want to do, which is she just booked her own theater, just paid for it out of pocket. She's been promoting the heck out of this show, just trying to sell tickets and hoping that she'll be able to make a profit on it. So good for her. Really excited to be doing that show. So with that, let's turn to part 2 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast, where I have been doing an analysis of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, going through each chapter, each law of power, and just giving my analysis, my thoughts and feelings on that particular law. Now, today's law is, again, one of those laws that, in this case, I feel fairly agnostic towards. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. It's just sort of an interesting idea to express as a law of power. But the law of power is to learn to master the art of timing. Learn to master the art of timing. So that, I don't know, this one's kind of weird to me. I guess the good news is I don't really sense any nefarious undertones with this one, or cynical undertones, as I have with so many of the other laws of power, which I feel are very just, some of them are just downright evil in my opinion. So I don't really sense any guile in this law. I do feel it's a little interesting to express mastering timing as an art form. Because I don't, most art forms, there's a process to which you gain mastery, which is usually some sort of daily commitment to practicing. Um, I don't really know how you master this art. Would you just like wait around until something happens and then you go, oh, I'm going to go try this thing now. Cool, I've mastered timing. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Um, Now, one of the executions of this law that the book talks about is learning to be patient and to like not look in a hurry. And I can get behind that idea. I think patience is very important. And I do think that there is something off-putting about somebody who's maybe always in a hurry or is feeling frantic or feeling impatient. I do think it creates an unattractive energy. I'm even thinking about that from like a dating romantic standpoint. If you're on a date and you can't just be present with somebody, you're just thinking of, if you're a dude and you're just thinking, oh, when do I get to hook up or whatever, and you have that sort of pushy lack of patience energy. Yeah, that's not good. That's a huge turnoff. I think also the flip side of that is if maybe you know, somebody is looking for like to get married or whatever, and then they meet somebody and then it's all of a sudden like, oh, well, we got to get serious right away and get engaged, and there's that sort of pushy, needy, um, impatient energy. Same with, in the business world, if, you're being pushy in a job interview. Oh, I got to get this job. I got to start right away. I'm running out of money. I got to be successful right away, or whatever it is. In that regard, I definitely think this law could be of benefit to try to train oneself to be always present, never be in a hurry, never be in a rush, let life happen at the speed that it's going to happen. I think our only job is to show up with as much good energy, gratitude, consistency, openness, growth mindset, all of that fun stuff. Maybe a little bit of wonder, maybe a little bit of awe-inspiring energy. I think all of that is. I think that sort of energy and that sort of approach has a high potential to lead to good outcomes and exciting outcomes. Let the relationship come to you. Let the job come to you. Let the big break, let the opportunity come to you in its own time. The more impatient and pushy you get, I don't know. That's not an energy I like to live by. Now, I have heard plenty of valid anecdotes for the antithesis of that principle. The person who, boldly, who was that dude I read about it? I think he wanted to work with Ford, or maybe it was Edison or whatever. And he just sort of did the thing to where, he took a train or whatever, showed up to the office. I'm just going to use Ford as an example, although I don't think it was Ford. But I remember reading a story about this guy who wanted to, maybe it was Edison. Forgive the back and forth. We'll use Edison. So this dude who wanted to work with Edison, he just knew that's what he wanted to do. And so he just like took a train from wherever he was living and just went to wherever Edison's plant was or his factory was and just walked through the front door of the factory or whatever and said, I want to meet with Edison. And of course the secretary's like, no, you can't meet with Edison. He's like, well, I'm just going to sit here and keep bugging Edison until he comes. And then the dude like did that, like showed up every single day for like a year until he finally got his meeting with Edison. I'm probably mixing up a lot of the details, but that sort of like obnoxious tenacity, Um, but eventually, the story goes he got the job with Edison and then became his right hand man or whatever, and became a gajillionaire, something like that. It's one of those types of stories. So you could say, did that person master the art of timing, or were they just relentless and did not ever accept no for an answer? But I don't know. Sometimes I think when somebody says no, you leave them alone. Like, I don't know. I can kind of go back and forth on this idea of waiting around, because there is also such a thing as you don't want to just wait around for things to happen, right? You want to be out there pursuing and putting your best foot forward and being bold and being courageous and taking chances. And so I don't know. The wait around for things to happen, not a fan of that. But I think perhaps sort of the marriage between these two seemingly contradictory concepts here is you can't force anything, you can't manipulate anything, but you can show up and be authentic and be bold and be courageous, but then you have to be patient with the result. Okay. All right, I think I'm formulating a concept here that I can word this into. Be courageous and bold and relentless with your input, and then be patient and wait for timing for your results. Do not be patient with effort, be patient with result. Oh, ho, 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 ho. Look at me coming up with a little fortune cookie wisdom on the spot there. Be relentless in effort, patient with the results. I like that. That's it, everybody. I think I solved it. I think I have solved life. You are welcome. It only took me 254 episodes of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast to figure it out, right? So maybe that is how we get the best of both worlds. Learn the art of timing, but the art of timing is, always be pursuing and open to opportunities. And then once an opportunity presents itself, understanding that, when the opportunity is there, that is the time to strike. I think all that makes sense. I think I've done a good job here. What do you all think? So, relentless in effort, patient with the results. Learn the art of timing. Good luck with that, whatever that means. So, everybody, we will wrap it up there. I hope that you are relentlessly pursuing your dreams and patiently waiting for the outcomes you desire. All I can say is, if you are putting in the effort, an outcome will manifest itself. Eventually, it has to. So, let's all go out there and pursue our dreams and receive those outcomes. All right, everybody. That's all for today. This is August 13th, 2024, episode 254 of the Paul Green Comedy PaulCast. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.